Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're down here in Nashville, Tennessee with the legendary Bones and with the Silly Idiots. This is George Thorogood with Mike and Hut and my main man.
I bet you had to do so many of those at radio stations. Like, hey, this is George Thorogood, and you're listening to Rock 106.
You know, we cut a song by Johnny Otis, Willie and the Hand Jive, and I made the mistake when I recorded it. It said, the baby got famous in his crib, you see, and I went, doing a hand job on MTV. Now, MTV was real big then, right? So I thought that'd be a clever thing to do. EMI gets me down to L.A., gets me in the studio like here, right? And they had that song, and they want me to dub in this when it said, doing a hand job on KLOS, doing a hand job on WDET, WDE on WMAS, and it was about 150 of them. And I said, never want to hear that song. It backfired on me. And I did it.
You did it.
Yeah, I did it.
Yeah.
It took me all day to do it, but I did it.
Well, I feel lucky that you're here because you don't live in Nashville. Do you still live in Boston?
No.
Where do you live now?
West Coast.
Okay, good for you. Weather's better, huh? Yeah, most of the time? Ish?
Every place has got its ups and downs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I played the Opry probably 15 times at this point, but I also host and produce the Opry TV show. And we were kind of going through guests, and they said, hey, George Thorogood's going to make his Opry debut. And I was like, I am literally the biggest George Thorogood fan. What I was doing was actually telling us, I said, hey, and they did know in the end. But I was like, the Hank Sr., he took, you have roots in actually knowing old school country music because you kind of converted some of that to rock. And so I think that's important for country music fans to know is that you actually have a respect for the old traditional country music.
Yeah, I guess so. I never looked at Hank Williams' country music at all because this was about 1969 or something when I first discovered Hank Williams. I knew the song I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry by B.J. Thomas. He did a rhythm and blues version of it. You may have heard it. It came out in 66. So when I got his music at the same time, almost the same time, within a month or a couple of weeks, I can't remember, but I was turned on to Robert Johnson. And I was listening to Hank Williams one day, Robert Johnson next. I couldn't figure out which artist was greater, which one was better. And I said, it's a draw. But in that time, there was no category called country music. It just was, I heard Ring of Fire on the radio, AM radio in like 1962 or whatever. So I started listening to this guy, Hank Williams, and started getting all his stuff, doing some background on him. And I never really thought of it like that. I just thought of it as very groovy songs, a very ingenious guy who wrote these fantastic tunes. And then later, I guess when you got a categorized thing, I said, well, what is blues? This is the R&B charts. This is the blues charts. I said, man, I heard Ray Charles on the radio, and right after that, they played a Marty Robbins song. That's how far back I go. So I never knew that distinction. I just thought, because I was just a little kid, I thought, well, it's just groovy songs. So, yeah, I have respect for that, but I've always tried to stay away from classifying things. Like, how can you classify Dylan?
How do you classify you? I know you're staying away from it, but it's like, blues and rock. And then I also just looked. I was like, because, again, I could go through your catalog of songs. Mm-hmm. And also, let me say this. Every time somebody has to pick a song for me to enter a room to, it's you. Mm. Every time I go into it, they're like, hey, we're going to do something new no one's ever done. As soon as Bobby Bones walks in, we're going to play Bad to the Bone. Every single time. So so every time, a little bit, I curse your name, even though I love the song. But I'm like, dang that Bad to the Bone. They play it every time.
Well, to classify me, I just make it easy. I'm an international sex symbol.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know what chart I don't know how to get on that chart. But let me play a little clip of Bad.
I don't really know myself. You know, I never really. When we got started, they slotted us into blues for lack of other areas, but blues never embraced this to the beginning. It was called underground FM music in 77, 78, and 79, and then that later got replaced by classic rock. So, we just played. We didn't think. I said, well, what category do you put Tom Waits in? I said,
you're right.
He's a one-of-a-kind type of artist. And I just said, well, I'm not blues. Buddy Guy's blues. I'm just George with, a lot of funny songs and a fast beat. And maybe we'll catch on, So I'm like you. My comedy's my main thing. That's my main gig, you know.
But you also, crossed over and were basically, because of how popular you were, even though you never changed your style, you were a pop artist.
Well, pop means popular.
Right, that's my point
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
mean you were sonically changing anything.
Michael Jackson's the king of pop, but I know what you're saying. What's ever popular is pop. It doesn't matter what degree or level it is. If you're popular with 15 people or 15,000, you're still, like you said, you're popular with somebody.
Right. My favorite, one of my favorites, because I think I was maybe 11 years old when get a haircut and get a real job. Like I was actually like listening to music and choosing my own music at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me, I actually remember and I felt when it come out. That was early 90s.
93. Yeah.
And I remember hearing that on the pop station.
What do you want from me?
And then it went right over and almost it went from me hearing you on the pop station, but I would also hear some of the older stuff on the classic rock station.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like, my mind's blown right now. I'm hearing the same guy on the pop station and the same guy on the classic rock station.
I was going to the gym one day, and I heard "Who Do You Love" on KLOS, which is a classic rock station. So I went in, did what I did, and then I came back, and I switched to K-Earth 101, which is oldies. And they played "Who Do You Love?" I said, well, what is it? Is it classic or is it an oldie? Which is it?
I want to look at my playlist here. So, I can sing all these back to you. You probably don't want that. But let me start with Bad to the Bone, which this has become a cultural song from the 80s, I feel like. And when I think of watching Married with Children, which I watch all the time, every time Al Bundy did something that was cool, this song came on, which meant you got paid.
Al Bundy was Married with Children?
Yeah.
Actually, the song they used, I think, was Born to Be Bad. When he did that motorcycle thing with Lee Marvin.
Different, yes.
Yeah,
they did that song too.
That happened, which made me feel because Lee Marvin's one of my personal guys, so that was pretty clever.
One bourbon, one scotch, one beer and I don't even drink, still don't drink, but still, jam of a song. I'd hear that on classic rock radio.
All right, one ginger ale, one hot chocolate, one glass of water.
Nice. Shirley Temple probably, but yeah.
The thing is really like when people would get to me and say I drink alone. I said, no, I could have said I watch TV alone. I read alone. Because 90% of the time when you're in your life, you are alone. All the things you do. You go to the bathroom alone. You go to the store alone. So one bourbon, one scotch, one beer, it just meant one of something. The thing was, the guy got kicked out of his house. He couldn't pay the rent, which really happened to us in Boston in '74. So somebody bought the building and doubled the price for staying there, doubled it, and we couldn't afford it. So we were out. And that's when that thing started to emerge. So Jeff and I are actually living it, the house rent thing there. So that's really the gist of the song.
When you talk about, which is a different song, I Drink Alone, but when I do an impression of you, which you probably don't want to hear, I blow my voice out almost immediately. I drink alone, yeah, with nobody. But how do you keep that? Is that just naturally in your voice, or do you got to push that a bit?
Yeah, you do, but when I was my voice changed earlier than most guys do. Most kids, their voice changes when they're like 14, 15, it gets lower. Well, mine changed when I was about in the 4th grade, and my voice dropped down. So that was something that was kind of natural to me. So when I heard singers like Howlin' Wolf, Tom Waits, and I said, Tom just he growls the lyrics. And I said, you don't have to have a great voice. What you have to have is a distinctive voice, and above all, a good song. That's number one. So, yeah, part of that was natural, and part of it was I'm a Howlin' Wolf fan. I did a lot of time studying his voice. So, we'd go to parties, and people would take me along and say, we don't like anybody here. Let's clear the house. George, do Howlin' Wolf.
I was looking at how rigorous you used to tour for a while. Like you were a hustler. And I was looking at over the years, but if I'm going to dial in on something that I want people to note was when you did 50 states in 50 days, but you also did D.C. So basically it was 51 in 50 days. Mm-hmm. But that Hawaii to Alaska trek, because that's what you did. If I'm not mistaken here, you did a show in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. You flew the next day and did Alaska.
Yeah.
Was that a close call to just get there to do that show, much less be exhausted?
Not really. Our booking agent spent a lot of time on it in advance. He just didn't do it a week in advance. It took months and months of planning that thing and setting it up just right. So, yeah, we wanted to do, it didn't work out though. We wanted to do Delaware first.
That's where you're from?
Because it's the first state.
Yeah.
And we wanted to do Hawaii last because it was the 50th state. But routing it didn't work that way. I said, that's a nice idea, George, but forget it.
When you think about people from Delaware, because the destroyers were originally the Delaware destroyers, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they weren't.
They weren't the Delaware destroyers?
No, what happened was we were the destroyers, and we played at a wedding reception, and a friend of mine who I went to high school with was there, and he was very excited about our band, and every time we took a break and people were, going to get a champagne or he kept going to the mic and going, the Delaware Destroyers will be right back soon. The Delaware, so he kind of said that, and I just kind of stuck. I said, I was one time after that we were doing a gig out in Boston in a park, and somebody said, who's playing today? He said, I don't know, some band called George Washington and the Delaware River. How I had trouble with my name. I said, look, ZZ Top, that's a great name. Sting, great name. Just simplify this thing. Adam and I have been going around about that for years. I said, this is too much stuff, too much stuff to say, but it gets your attention anyway.
When you're doing that tour hitting, and it could be in a year actually, it doesn't have to be the 50 and 50, but do you ever just forget where you are? And go, all right, Minnesota, what's happening? And it's like, hey, George, we're actually in Kansas.
Happened to me once, and once is one time too many. And I went up to the mic and said, it's great to be here in Greenville, North Carolina, and you're in Greensboro, South Carolina. So I get all those the Columbuses and the Columbias and the Greensboros and the Greenston. I get them all mixed up. And after I said that, I said, oh, great, it's going to be a long night.
And that's the only time you ever did that?
Yeah, I never did it again.
That's a pretty good record.
Yeah,
45 years of playing shows. You've done it one time.
Right. I learned my lesson.
So playing in clubs early on, I got to assume that the sound just isn't great. Isn't it just a bunch of microphones pecked up to a speaker?
We worked at making our sound great, Bones. We worked real hard at that. We were one of the few bands that would go early. We travel with our own PA. And it was a Shure PA system, and it was a good one. And we had the cabins were about this big, and we located them strategically in the club, like one of them at the end of the bar, and one sitting here, and one sitting over here. And we turned each of them to a certain volume, like the one up here would be a little louder, and we mic'd my amp at a small amp. So we worked very hard at that. Only one place we played did have a PA system, and it was kind of hard to mess up our sounds. 3 guys. One vocal, if you call it that, okay? So, no, it wasn't, all clubs are not, but our sound then, we were just a small trio, so we were ideal for those small places. So it fit right in, but we worked very hard at that to make sure. I mean, we didn't have a record. We weren't doing top 40. I don't look like Warren Beatty. I mean, we got to be great, or, you got to, or to leave, So we worked at every angle we could to get the gig and hold on to the gig.
When did you start noticing more people coming to shows, and why? Where you're just like, wow, like we're kind of catching on here. This is crazy to go to a place in America I've never been and see people come and be fans. Like, what had happened in your career where was it a little bit of radio play? Was it?
Well, that helped. I mean, that's what you need. You need to get on the radio. I mean, you either in FM radio in that time, it was called album-oriented radio. It was an album they played. But we had a tune that I really was hammering my head against the wall with our record label at the time and saying, our record sat there for a long time, sitting on the shelf, like something like 18 months. And man, you did not want to know me in those days. And I was saying, you got to get this record out. You got to. Bourbon, Scotch, and Beer is a hit. I said, what am I going to do if the Allman Brothers cut it? What am I going to do if Jay Giles cuts it? What am I going to do if Tom Waits cuts it? I know I see people. I used to play it solo without a band, and people jumped for it. And they said something funny. I said, well, what about if somebody else records? They said, well, just record another song. What? Songs like that tonight, and it's still on the radio today. So I said, well, it's not me. Those songs made me famous. I didn't make the songs famous. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I look at people and you go up to them and say, hi, I'm George. And they go, yeah. And I go, Bad to the Bone. They go, oh, yeah. See, so most people are like that.
But to be fair, you wrote Bad to the Bone.
To be fair, you're a sweetheart. To be fair, okay. Right.
I mean, you are that. That's different than a song that if you covered it wonderfully, that's different.
To an extent, yeah, it's very, very close to. When we first put that thing together, we wanted to give it to Muddy Waters, and Muddy Waters management was not keen on that idea at all. Then I had an idea to give it to Bo Diddley, and he didn't have a record label at the time, and we were. Nobody knew about the song. This was all in my mind to do this when we got the song done. And we were down in New Orleans. We're on a show. That was stop number 44 on the 50/50 tour.
Are you just saying that number, or do you really remember that?
I do.
Wow.
I remember it. It's Henry Aaron's number, 44, of course.
Of course.
And the night before, we played in a place in Arkansas that seated 125 people. The next night, we played in a place seated 80,000 people.
You're going one to the other. The juxtaposition is wild to play for 180,000.
Exactly. And then we had to go on after the Neville Brothers in New Orleans and go on before the Rolling Stones. And I had about 103-degree temperature. But getting back to Bad to the Bone, I was not on top of my game. And as I'm in a golf cart going up to the stage, and a man comes up to me and he says, George, I hear you're writing songs. And I went, who have you been talking to? He goes, never mind. And I go, well, I'm doing that. And he said, well, if any of them are going to be like Bone, you're going to do all right. I said, you mean Bad to the Bone? And he goes, yeah. And I go, how do you know about that? And he goes, it's my job to know about it. Hi, I'm David Geffen.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm not kidding.
Come on.
And we had only done it in like rehearsals and sound checks. We never really got there yet, got it in the studio, but somehow he picked up on it. I said, well, can't go wrong there.
The rise of Bad to the Bone, as it was happening organically, did it feel like a rocket ship, or was it, once it actually was pressed and sent out, happen fast or happen slow?
Slow. Didn't really click right away. It was another song in the set. They wanted to hear Bourbon, Scotch, and Beer, and that's what they wanted to hear, and Moving On Over. But that one was in the show, and people were like, yeah, okay. But when Rock Classic Radio got a hold of it, boom. That's when it took off. It was pretty shocking, actually, to be part of that, because we were lucky that Bad to the Bone got in there on pretty much the infancy of classic rock. And the other tunes they were selecting were things like Rockin' Me Baby, Steve Miller, Jumpin' Jack Flash, The Stones, Stairway to Heaven. So I was in company that I never dreamed I would even be close to anything like this. I'll give you an example. I was out doing something. I think I went to the gym or something. I came home and I turned on classic rock, and they were playing the song Bourbon, Scotch, and Beer. And I said, okay, I'm listening. I said, I'm just going to keep it on just to hear what the DJ says, sitting in my garage. And they come on and go, well, that was a block of Thorogood, Hendrix, and Clapton. What? I ran into the house and immediately started practicing my guitar. I said, are you kidding me? Wait a minute, George, you better start taking your job a little more serious, because somebody else is.
Just talking with you and talking about how radio started playing you feel like a big transfer in your career was because of classic rock picking you up and that audience hearing it. Am I hearing that right?
What's that again?
Like, did classic rock radio define how people listened and knew you more than anything else?
It was like a step-by-step procedure. We got into, like I say, FM, album oriented, and then we got in on the bottom of MTV. And then just as rock classic radio started, we got in on that. Yeah. So we were at the right place at the right time with the right song. And then things went from there to like the Native American casinos, which we started working, which was opening up then. And we had the right material to fit into those things. That wasn't planned, because I didn't know there was going to be rock classic radio. I didn't know there was going to be MTV or Native American casinos hiring us. It just happened that way. So we were lucky to have the material that fit into to their format anyway. And classic rock radio, nobody wants to say, where do they play? I said, oldies. Nobody wants to hear oldies. Classic rock sounds better than oldies. And you go up and you see, if you go up to the thing and you see somebody like, I don't know, Don Rickles, you don't say he's an oldie. So he's a classic. He's a classic performer. And I dug that. I hope someday they don't call it old classic rock. Right?
Just put them all together.
Yeah. It's still the same music.
Whenever I would see you, especially on the internet, play harmonica, right? You get the harmonica, you start playing. I have learned, I'm a really bad harmonica player. I just make sure it's in the right key and I just blow it over. You can just blow in key, basically. Mm-hmm. How good are you at actually playing harmonica?
I think I know Oh Susanna. I can play that pretty good. I can play.
Are you like me though? Like, all right, we're playing this in E. Grab the E harmonica.
No, I do it the right way.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't.
I cheat.
I think Jimmy Reed does it that way. When it's in E, use the E harmonica.
Yeah, I cheat.
I can play John Hardy by Leadbelly, and I can do a little bit of Nobody But You by Little Walter.
Okay, see, here's the thing I've learned about you today. We've only known each other a brief time. You don't give yourself enough credit at anything. You're one of the greatest. And first of all, you say the songs that you found made you. You said if the right place, right. I haven't heard you one time go, yeah, it's pretty cool. I got pretty good. People love me.
They do?
Yeah, not right.
Any of them females?
You tell me.
Well, I've been too busy to really check that kind of thing out, Bones. I'm like, I'm laying out sound. I'm doing stuff. Adam's got me working. Hut's got me working. I don't really have time to sit back. Oh, they love me. They love me. I'm like, after the show's over, and give me on the bus. I got to go.
How about the Opry? Why the Grand Ole Opry?
Why not? They sent for me.
They did.
Yeah. See, that's what we do with this act. We only go where we're sent for. Then they could get mad at me when Thorogood shows up. They go, this guy's too loud and too obnoxious. I said, wait a minute, you sent for me. You send for Thorogood, you get his habits.
What are you going to play at the Opry?
Saturday.
No, what? What songs? Because, again, you have so many.
Uh-huh.
And are you going to, how do you decide what you're going to play in what venue? Because you don't get 30 minutes at the Opry, you get a few songs.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what you're going to play yet?
Well, I was thinking about A Boy Named Sue, Your Cheating Heart, El Paso.
See, I don't think you're going to do Marty Robbins, Johnny Cash.
We're going to do a Johnny Cash song.
You are?
You have to, yeah. You got to do that. And we'll do the Hank Williams thing, moving on over. And a solo piece on an acoustic slide guitar.
I would venture to say that anyone 50 to 30, and I'm in that age group, knows you more for moving on over. Because you popularized it to a level that wasn't then because they didn't have the ability to get it all the places that it could once you did it. And you also did it so distinctly, right? I would say more people my age know Moving On Over from you and have to be taught it was Hank Sr. So I'm just saying, take credit for it and act like you wrote it, and then everybody will believe it and be like, yeah.
Well, whatever, it keeps us working. I mean, I will tell you this, and this is how the Destroyers operate. When we go into and sit down and learn a song, or we go into the studio or whatever, whether we write it or whatever, our MO, as you call it, or whatever, we always listen to, is this a song our fans will like? Is this a song they'll go for? It's like somebody having a restaurant, and you have a menu, and you want to keep the customers coming. So you keep some of the same things on it, and you put other ones on it. Say, we don't really, to an extent, we record to our taste, but we record or pick material that we know. I mean, we knew. I Drink Alone. We were playing it not very good, and we went and did a guest set in a club and said, "Can we play?" And we played it. We were just learning the song. We weren't even halfway through it, and the whole audience was singing it already. So we knew we had tapped into something that they wanted to hear. And that's the way we operate. We can say, "Oh yeah, I kind of like that song." It's not about whether we like it. It's got to be, the people buy the records if they like it. That's what we shoot for. And if I could, write "Bridge Over Troubled Water," I would have done it. But this is the best I can do, Bones.
Are you still a Mets fan?
Oh yeah.
See, I'm a Cubs fan, and I've been a Cubs fan my whole life before they were good. So I know what it's like to have just a sucky team, and you love them more the longer they suck. And when they win, you don't have to jump up and be like, "Hey, look at me," because you just feel that pride inside of you. And I know you've been a Mets. Were you sad when Shea Stadium went down?
No, it's progress. It's See, I have some people that were Yankee fans, and they're disappointed every year because they go, the Yankees are expected to win. The Mets are expected to lose. So if they finish 500, I've had a good year.
Do you miss playing ball?
No.
None?
No.
As good as you were?
As good as
Hey, listen, you played at Listen, I played in high school. I played Legion ball. I was okay. I wasn't as good as you were.
Who have you been talking to?
I see, I read, I look. I hear stories. Like I said, it's my job to know.
Yes. Well, thank you. I look good in a uniform. Let's put it that way.
Again, humble.
You're talking about baseball here, not playing slide guitar.
I'm talking about baseball.
Yeah, well, it's a very hard game to play. It's, there's many aspects to the game: running, throwing, stealing, making double plays, things like that. It's not easy. That's why softball was created. So cats like me who can't cut it with baseball, we play softball.
Softball is created so old guys like us get hurt again later and remember why we didn't play baseball. Every time I play something, I get hurt now.
Yeah.
Like basketball in the bat, I got a hurt calf.
Yeah. Well,
lift weights, got a hurt shoulder.
Well, if Aaron rarely got hurt. He had a long career and he never had any injuries. And they said, Hank, you've done really well over 23 years, and you're playing big league ball, and you've sidestepped injuries. And he said, if you know how to play, you don't get injured.
I guess I've never known how to play that.
That's me too.
I've never known how to play.
That's me.
How's the guitar playing going?
I'm still getting hired.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're still, the bat line is still hot. We were just talking about that coming in today, and we got some things going on. So obviously, some promoters somewhere in places in the world have not forgotten about us. And a lot of these things are rescheduled, you understand, because of pandemic. There was, we rescheduled certain things, and then at the last minute we had to pull out again because the pandemic was not solved yet. So we've been booked for beginning of the last year and a half ago. But we just keep moving them up each year. So they better get this thing together because I'm not getting any younger.
Well, listen, there are only a few people that I would pay money to go to a show to because I don't have to anymore, right? I can just call somebody and be like, hey, look, but I would pay, if you were playing in town, I would pay money and I would go. I mean, that's the respect that I have for you.
Thank you. I'm the same way. If someone says, well, let's go see somebody, I go, I got to get in the car. I got to go drive all the way there, go to the parking, go get the seats, go do this. Hut's got to make all these arrangements and do these things to go see it. I go, well, who are you going to see? I go, McCartney, Tom Jones, the Stones, Neil Young, Dylan. And don't waste my time on any small fry because it's expensive and it's tough to get to these things, And as you get older, it gets a little harder just to get out of the bed. But if you say, I'm getting out of the bed and tonight I'm going to see Paul McCartney, that's a little different.
Well, I'm going to recommend anybody listening, whenever you get back on the road, whenever any of my friends get back on the road, but whenever you get back on the road, that if you're in town, to go watch and take in a show and take in some rock history. Not just you, but also the music that you bring with you from before you. Because I think that's very important. Because obviously you had your own songs, you wrote your own songs, but you paid homage to the songs that got you here as well. And I think that is so important for people to know. And I would come and watch. I'm going to end with this question for you. When in your career were you playing or were you on a show or something, and you look around and you go, I cannot believe I've made it this far. Like I'm looking around me right now. Maybe it's a TV show, famous people, maybe it's a crowd. When was that moment where you went, holy crap, I can't believe this guy from Delaware, here I am?
Every night.
Yeah, come on. Come on.
You can bet on that.
What was it like opening for the Stones?
Well, it was kind of like, your birthday, the first day off of school, summer vacation, Hanukkah, Christmas, all rolled into one.
It didn't ever, but every night, like night 13, you weren't like, ho-hum, time to do another show.
Excuse me?
Like when you're opening for them a few times, are you ever like, it's just another show?
Just another show. Yeah, like people in the World Series saying, it's just another game.
Okay.
Super Bowl, yeah, it's just another game.
Fair enough.
Just another game, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, let me encourage you guys to check out the Opry on Saturday night because George will be playing. When he's touring, go see him. And also check out Live in Boston 1982, the complete concert. Like, that's where it is. You live, that's where it is.
That's what we do.
From my ears my mouth to God's ears, that's where it is.
Well, that's kind of where we made our mark.
Yeah.
Made our mark with things. And when we did those things with the Stones, so remember, we had a very limited time to play, and we didn't have Bad to the Bone out yet. And Bill Graham kept hiring us on a daily basis, like a rookie who gets into the lineup and does good, so he hired him the next day. And it wasn't so much that, I mean, they're all Rolling Stones fans and Jay Giles fans. And what Graham was trying to get me, said, yeah, but George, you grab the crowd's attention and you keep it. That's important. More important right now than having a noticeable song. These are 80,000 people. And that he put that into my head. You know, I said, so with the right material, we could probably sustain this as long as possible. And that's when we started looking into saying, get a couple other tunes in there, George.
Nice.
You know.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Thank you.
Yes, there he is. Thank you for your time. It's rare I get to talk with a legend.
Likewise.
No, not likewise. George Thorogood, everybody. All right, nice job. Hey guys, it's Bobby Bones. Welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and then go check it out. A lot of artists, a lot of songwriters, a lot of music. Welcome to the Bobby Cash channel.